A woman in rural Pennsylvania kept her adult sons in infancy for over 30 years, nursing them 4 times daily until they were gray-haired men in their 50s. When authorities separated them, the brothers nearly died from psychological trauma. This is how love became a prison and freedom meant death. In October 1854, Reverend Isaac Thornhill rode through the Allegheny Mountains. A churchgoer, Martha Graham, pulled him aside after service. Trembling, she whispered of the Caldwell farm, deep in the forest, where grown men cried like babies and a woman with coal-black eyes ruled. Martha begged Isaac to investigate, but refused to go herself. Isaac learned the family lived 5 miles up a barely there road. Widow Constance Caldwell had raised her sons in isolation for decades. Neighbors spoke of baby talk from adult voices, harsh commands, and primal sobbing. Isaac rode up the fog-choked path. The cabin sagged, smoke curling from a crooked chimney. Inside, grown men begging Mama in terror. He knocked. Silence fell. The door creaked open. Constance, tiny, silver-haired, eyes cold, stared out. "What do you want?" she rasped. Isaac offered guidance. She sneered, "We don't need your God." From the shadows came whimpers. "Mama, please." She snapped, "Hush, boys." 2 huge figures huddled by the fireplace, bearded, gray-streaked, eyes wide with fear. Constance's dress hung open at the chest. A worn stool sat at her feet. Isaac understood. He returned days later with food, gaining entry. The brothers' lives revolved around Constance. At dawn, midday, dusk, and midnight, they crawled to her rocking chair. She nursed one while the other waited, trembling. They spoke in toddler fragments. "Mama hungry." She dressed them, fed them cut-up food, corrected their manners. Isaac tried reasoning with Silas alone. "You're a grown man." Silas shrieked, "We'll die without Mama's milk." He beat himself until Constance returned, cradling him, glaring at Isaac. Silas mentioned a third brother, Caleb, weak and gone. Isaac tracked him to a mining town. Caleb, now Warren, drank heavily. He revealed after their father died in 1829, Constance began extended nursing, claiming it protected them. By Caleb's teens, his brothers, then adults, still nursed. She destroyed letters, told horror stories of disobedient children torn apart. Caleb fled at 17. Constance sent the brothers after him. They got lost 2 miles out. She withheld milk for 3 days as punishment. "That's when I knew they were gone," Caleb said. Separation was death. Isaac took testimony, medical exams, and evidence to Magistrate Billings. The brothers counted to 12, barely read. Doctors called their minds frozen in childhood. Billings reluctantly ordered temporary removal for evaluation. Chaos erupted. Silas attacked deputies. Tobias clawed the doorframe. "You're killing us." They were dragged away, screaming. In town, they refused food, developed unexplained fevers, attempted suicide. Tobias made phantom nursing motions. On day 5, near death, they were returned. Constance smiled. "Told you. They're mine." The brothers collapsed at her feet, begging forgiveness. The failed rescue reinforced her lies. Isaac dug deeper. Neighbors recalled Constance changing after her husband's death, nursing a 16-year-old Silas, wielding a shotgun against teachers. An 1835 uncle's letter went unacknowledged. An 1842 merchant wrote of bearded men at her feet. Isaac brought Caleb's letter. Constance burned it. He chose death. When Isaac spoke of freedom, she laughed. Freedom to die unloved? The brothers crawled to nurse. 7 years later, 1861, Constance, 79, lay dying of pneumonia. The brothers, late 50s, gaunt, lay beside her, still trying to nurse. Isaac arrived. They refused food, water. Constance died. The brothers wailed, not for her, but themselves. They continued nursing her corpse. Mama sleeping. They attacked anyone trying to move her. Within days, they willed themselves to death. Silas died day 10, Tobias day 11, smiling in relief. The county buried them in unmarked graves. The cabin stood cursed. Locals heard cries on quiet nights. It collapsed in 1882. Isaac found Constance's wall carving. Love that binds lasts forever. My boys will never leave me. Caleb died drunk, screaming for the mother he hated. 3 sons destroyed by love. Isaac's journals warned, the strongest prisons are built in the mind. The real curse? A community that looked away.
Dear God, Isaac breathed, pulling them away. She's gone. She's dead. You have to stop this. Silas looked at him with eyes that held no recognition of reality. Mama is sleeping. She'll wake up. She always wakes up. We just have to wait. Dr. Weatherby came daily, but his medical knowledge proved useless against whatever psychological mechanism was shutting down the brothers' will to live. Their bodies showed no illness, no injury, yet they were dying as surely as if they'd been poisoned. I've never seen anything like it, Weatherby confessed to Isaac on the 5th day. It's as if their minds are commanding their bodies to cease functioning. They're literally willing themselves to death. On the 7th day, Silas stopped drinking water. Tobias followed suit within hours. They lay in the bed, flanking their mother's body, which Isaac had been unable to remove for burial because the brothers attacked anyone who tried to take her away. The cabin had become a tomb for 3 people, 2 still technically alive. Isaac sat vigil, documenting everything in a journal, compelled to create some record of this tragedy. He wrote about how the brothers held hands across their mother's corpse, how they whispered to each other in voices too low to hear, how they seemed almost peaceful as they faded. On the 10th day, Isaac found Silas dead. He'd simply stopped breathing sometime during the night, his hand still clutching his mother's cold fingers. Tobias stirred when Isaac checked for Silas's pulse, his eyes opening briefly. "Silas found Mama," Tobias whispered, his voice barely audible. "Now I can go too." "Tobias, please let me help you. Let me take you to your brother Caleb. You could still have a life." But Tobias had already closed his eyes again, a small smile playing at his lips. Isaac recognized that expression. It was relief. After 58 years of existence, Tobias was finally being released from a life that had been a prison from its very beginning. 11 days after Constance Caldwell died, Tobias followed his brother and mother into death. Isaac found him in the morning, lying in the same bed where all 3 had slept for decades, his arms wrapped around himself in a final, eternal embrace. The county buried all 3 in unmarked graves at the edge of the town cemetery, as far from consecrated ground as possible. The cabin stood empty, nobody willing to claim the property or the possessions inside. Locals whispered that it was cursed, that you could still hear the brothers crying for their mother on quiet nights. Isaac wrote his final journal entry that evening. "I witnessed the death of 3 people today, though 2 had been dead in every way that mattered for half a century. God help us all for the horrors we allowed to flourish in the name of family." The Caldwell property stood abandoned for over 2 decades after the deaths. No one wanted land where such profound psychological horror had taken root. The cabin itself seemed to radiate wrongness, its walls still holding echoes of decades of twisted maternal control and destroyed lives. Local children dared each other to approach the property on moonless nights, though few made it past the tree line. They claimed to hear sounds drifting from the empty cabin, grown men crying like infants, a woman's harsh voice commanding obedience, the creaking of a rocking chair that no longer existed. Whether these sounds were real or products of guilty community conscience, no one could say for certain. Isaac returned to the site only once in 1878, 17 years after the deaths. He was an old man now, his hair white, his body bent from years of carrying the weight of what he'd witnessed. He walked through the cabin's remains, the roof partially collapsed, the walls rotting, nature slowly reclaiming what humanity had abandoned. In the bedroom where 3 people had died, he found something that made his blood run cold. Scratched into the wooden wall above the bed, in handwriting he recognized as Constance's, were words that seemed to summarize the entire nightmare. "Love that binds is love that lasts forever. My boys will never leave me. Never." He understood then what had truly happened in this place. Constance hadn't just destroyed her son's ability to function independently. She destroyed their very concept of self, rebuilding their identities so completely around needing her that they ceased to exist as separate human beings. And when she died, they died, because there was no them without her. The psychological mechanism she'd created was perfect in its cruelty. The extended nursing wasn't about nutrition or even control in the simple sense. It was about creating a physical dependency so profound that it rewired her son's brains, making separation from her feel like death itself. And she'd been right. Separation was death for them. Isaac learned that Caleb had died 2 years earlier, never having overcome the trauma of his childhood despite his escape. He drank himself into an early grave, his wife telling Isaac that he'd wake screaming most nights, calling for his mother, even though he hated her with every fiber of his being. 3 sons, all destroyed by a woman who claimed to love them more than anything. 3 lives consumed by maternal devotion, twisted into something monstrous. The cabin finally collapsed completely in 1882 during a severe storm. The locals cheered its destruction, hoping it would finally lay the ghosts to rest. The land remained empty, considered cursed, avoided by anyone who knew its history. But the real curse wasn't in the land or the cabin. It was in the minds of those who had known the truth and done nothing. The neighbors who heard strange sounds and convinced themselves it wasn't their business, the officials who prioritized family privacy over human welfare, the doctors who had no framework for understanding psychological abuse, the entire community that allowed horror to flourish because confronting it was too uncomfortable. Isaac died in 1885, taking with him detailed journals documenting the Caldwell case. His final entry reflected on what the tragedy revealed about the limits of love, the danger of absolute parental control, and how the strongest prisons are built not with walls, but with manipulation of the human mind and heart. The Caldwell story became a whispered warning in the region, a cautionary tale about maternal love taken to its most nightmarish extreme, where protection became possession and devotion became destruction that consumed everyone it touched.